Stand at the corner of Sunset and Rodeo Drive today, and you are looking at the throne room of American celebrity. The Beverly Hills Hotel, wrapped in its signature salmon pink stucco, is a globally recognized symbol of wealth, fame, and power. But when it opened in 1912, Beverly Hills did not exist. There was no movie industry. There were only dirt roads, abandoned bean fields, and a group of investors making a $500,000 gamble on a luxury property in the absolute middle of nowhere. 3 years later, the motion picture industry began its massive migration west. Studios rose in Culver City and Burbank, and almost overnight, Southern California generated an entirely new class of American royalty. Early stars like Mary Pickford achieved a level of mass adoration that no human being had ever experienced. They possessed immense wealth and global recognition, but they lacked the physical infrastructure to protect themselves from crowds that literally wanted to tear their clothes for souvenirs. The hotel secured its future by becoming the infrastructure the new industry lacked, a high-walled sanctuary for a class of people with nowhere else to hide. The property's first operator, Margaret Anderson, instituted a code of silence that became the hotel's foundation. Staff members were explicitly instructed never to acknowledge celebrities by name in public spaces. Autograph seekers were barred from the grounds, and photographers were strictly forbidden. Curious, analytical tone. The physical layout was engineered to enforce this secrecy. Beyond the main building lay a collection of detached bungalows. These were separate structures with their own entrances and private phone lines, while 12 acres of imported tropical foliage absorbed all sound. Performers like Marilyn Monroe could disappear into these bungalows for days, emerging only for film shoots. The property functioned as sovereign territory, where stars could conduct business, recuperate, or carry on affairs entirely insulated from the public. But privacy protects everyone equally. Eccentric billionaires like Howard Hughes used the bungalows to run shadow operations. Mob bosses met with studio executives behind closed doors, knowing the night managers were trained to look the other way. For a century, the Pink Palace converted this commitment to silence into a highly profitable business model, effectively selling absolute discretion to those who could afford to pay for it. By 2014, the old studio system had collapsed. The new entertainment industry operated under constant social media scrutiny, where personal brands required public displays of moral accountability. Looking the other way was becoming a severe liability. The collision point was the hotel's ownership. In 1987, the property was purchased by the Sultan of Brunei. For decades, it wasn't an issue. Then, the Sultan's government enacted a strict interpretation of Sharia law. The new penal code mandated severe punishments, including death by stoning for homosexuality. Revenue generated by the Beverly Hills Hotel flowed directly into the treasury of a regime executing the very people modern Hollywood claimed to champion. The response was swift. Comedian Jay Leno, along with major advocacy groups and high-profile celebrities, called for a total boycott. Talent agencies canceled their regular meetings in the Polo Lounge, galas relocated, and the hotel emptied out. The industry that had spent decades celebrating the hotel for hiding its darkest, most destructive secrets was now publicly condemning the property for its connection to an oppressive foreign government. On the ground in Los Angeles, the financial impact was immediate. Occupancy rates dropped from over 80. Housekeepers, valets, and bartenders, people who had no influence over international human rights laws, watched their tips disappear and their shifts get cut as the bungalows sat empty. The boycott failed to change a single law in Brunei. It punished local workers for their proximity to the owner, but it lacked the economic power to inflict actual damage on the perpetrator. In March 2020, the Beverly Hills Hotel went dark. The COVID-19 pandemic forced a total shutdown, halting the remaining trickle of guests. The pandemic acted as a hard reset. With the entertainment industry fighting for its own survival during a global lockdown, the protests outside the hotel ceased. The intense moral outrage of 2014 simply dissolved into the chaos of a more immediate crisis. When travel eventually resumed, a new demographic of younger visitors began checking in. They were travelers who had no memory of the Hollywood boycott and viewed the property as an architectural landmark rather than a political symbol. Soon, industry veterans quietly returned to their tables in the Polo Lounge. Film studios resumed booking the ballrooms. The Sultan retained ownership, and the oppressive laws in Brunei remained fully intact. In a culture defined by short attention spans, the boycott lasted exactly as long as it was convenient. Once the energy required to sustain it became too high, the public simply chose to forget. Behind the scenes, management recognized that the era of centralized studio power was gone. The industry had fragmented, and the need for a physical throne room where deals were brokered over breakfast had largely become obsolete. Management adapted the property's operation, shifting focus from a century of hushed tones to a new economy of visual performance. Spaces once designed to hide guests from the world were repurposed for the lens. The lush gardens and signature pink walls were marketed as curated backdrops, inviting influencers and luxury brands to broadcast their presence to millions of followers. Today, the property is fully booked again. It no longer offers absolute privacy to movie stars hiding from the world. It sells aesthetics to a generation that values how a location looks on a smartphone screen. The Pink Palace still stands on Sunset Boulevard, but its value now lies in the photographs taken on its grounds, rather than the secrets kept within its walls. It survives because a new generation is willing to pay for the backdrop.